Welcome to the Book Party Podcast.
Join us as we journey into the world of books with Michael T.
Prepare to be captivated by engaging interviews, insightful discussions, and fascinating stories. You'll discover new adventures and gain insight into the creative process of the authors themselves as they share their struggles and accomplishments. Now let's hear from Michael T.
This is Michael T. Thank you for being with us this morning. We get to sit down with a talented author and discuss his thriller and murder novels. We would also like to give a shout out to FeedSpot, as Book Party Podcast has been selected by their panelists as one of the top 10 art book podcasts on the web. To all our listeners, I would like to invite you to go to bookpartypodcast.com and hit that subscribe tab on top. Scroll down to the icon of your choice where you can find us on one of your favorite platforms, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or Odyssey. You can download and follow us there. Please don't forget to sign up for our newsletter and get the latest information on our upcoming shows. Today, I would like to introduce our guest, Max Holden, and his book, It's Just Murder, Visiting the Tropics. Max's writing bug started in the early 2000s. His wife, friends, and family loved his reports about his life and travels in the Middle East and Asia. Retiring in 2021 from the constraints of writing marketing content at last freed him to write and share with others the thriller and murder novels bubbling around in his head. Home is Emsworth, England, with his ever-patient wife. Max, why don't you take it from here, fill in some of the blanks a bit, and tell our listeners about yourself?
Thank you, Michael. So where do I start? My writing career started a long time ago. It's one of those chain of events. I was the third son of a Scottish father and Austrian mother from their post-war romance, and from there, the first part of my life was spent in Malaysia. So from there, I picked up, I suppose, the traveling bug. And for the first 5 years of my life, I had a wonderful time in Malaysia. But because I was only from 0 to 5 years old, I didn't remember a damn thing about it, if I can say that word. So I went back to Scotland. My first time when we moved back in the 60s. My family this was a return for them, and in the early. Oh, sorry, I'm gonna have to pause. Let me start again. I graduated. Okay, hope you can edit this out. Right, I spent my formative schooling years in Scotland, where I picked up this horrible accent. And from there, I graduated and started my life as a computer engineer, fixing computers in and around Scotland and the UK. And in those days, it wasn't the little itsy bitsy computers you've got nowadays. It's the big ones where you walk into big rooms and fix these things. From there, I moved down to England as part of a promotion. And again, it was all about traveling. And I then moved into marketing because I complained about the lack of marketing. And my boss said to me, well, if you think you can do it better, do it. So put up or shut up. So I put up, and that started my marketing career, which actually started my writing career. And I started to enjoy the creative part of marketing. And we had the opportunity to move to the Middle East and then latterly Asia, which I took. And this was going back to the travel bug that kicked off my life. And
Well, you certainly had a weather change from England to the Middle East.
It was indeed. It was indeed. The winter in the Middle East is the most wonderful place, but the summer is not fun. And during that time, and even before, there's lots of stories bubbling around my head, and I always wanted to sort of pop them out, but I never really had the opportunity. Life was just too busy. So when I retired in 2021, my wife, my ever loving, fearful wife, said, "What are you going to do in your retirement? You are not somebody that sits around doing nothing all day long." She was scared I was going to annoy her. So I said, "I'm going to write. I'm going to write books because there's loads of stuff in there that's ready to pop out." And she said, um, "Good, about time." And I'd been writing reports and feedback to my friends, mostly comical, about life in the Middle East and in Sri Lanka. And during those times, I can't really repeat a lot of those back because it was a bit comical and sometimes not politically correct. But it was fun for everybody at that time. And that's what brought me to where I am. I've written 3 books: Logan's Rules, Spectrum, and It's Just Murder Visiting the Tropics. And a fourth is due out. The title is pending at the moment, and that's due out in September. And a fifth one is due out towards the end of the year. And here I am talking to you.
So, in your publishing journey, did you publish as a self-publishing author, or did you publish as an agency author in your journey?
I initially started life looking for agents to support me through the traditional publishing route. It's a hard route. It really is. And once I got into what their requirements were, and um, they actually needed somebody. They like their authors to do a lot of publishing for themselves, not publishing, marketing and communications, and reaching out to their audience themselves. And I was thinking, well, if I'm going to be doing that anyway, why do I want to give a cut of the very small royalties that I get
Right.
to a publishing company and an agency where I can do it myself and I can keep my prices aggressive because books aren't cheap, even ebooks. So I am a 100% indie author. I
Okay.
write, I edit, I do every element of the creatives. I even do my own covers. And perhaps later in my life, I will probably get some help with that. But right at the moment, I work on the basis that I'm not going to be spending money on my books at the moment. I want to get as many books out there as possible. Then I will look at seeing about the investing in marketing, because one of the things about being successful as an author is you've got to invest quite a lot of money in reaching an audience. Right at the moment, my objective is to write. I want to write, and for this year and next year, that's going to be my focus. And then I will decide how I'm going to reach out to the millions of people out there for the few readers.
Well, some people just start their own small publishing company. I have actually talked to quite a few that have done that, nothing more than an LLC, and they start their own publishing company and they go from there. Especially an indie author, they just do it that way. So it's something to consider anyway.
Absolutely.
I've had quite a few that do that. Okay, let's go back to your book. Take us to a point in time that you would consider your worst author moment.
Yeah, it was my third book, which I'm promoting today. Would you believe? I'd one of the one thing I should mention, by the way, is while I'm 100% indie and I do everything for myself, the one thing I don't do is beta reading, because beta reading is for people when the book's finished, before it gets published. You give it to a number of people that you know and trust to give honest feedback on the book. And the feedback I got on the book was, loved it, it was great, except it took too long for the murder to happen. And what I love, it's a book that takes place in Sri Lanka. I love Sri Lanka, And I was extolling the virtues of the country, and it started off being more of a travel log than a murder mystery. And it took beta readers honesty to come back and say, Ian, you have to you have to cut all that out because they want to read a murder. They don't want to read a travel log.
Right,
So
right.
the biggest thing I had was the first moment I had to cut out about a third of the content from the beginning of the book. And that was a painful exercise. It's a painful emotional exercise because it's the content that you have spent so long creating. Then suddenly you've just got to wipe it out. Maybe not throw it away, maybe keep it for a later book, but to wipe it out and just rethink about the whole story. And that's what I did. And that's why, if anybody who's an aspiring author is listening to this, if there's one thing I would say to you above all, is make sure you've got good beta readers who are honest with you and your book. Otherwise, you can fall into the same trap as me.
Kind of get to the point a little bit quicker and then expand on the
Yeah,
point,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
no, that's actually good. So you learned a lesson there, and you can use that lesson on your future books for sure. Okay, we'll flip the coin a little bit and take us to what we call an epiphany moment. You could have been doing absolutely anything except for your writing. And all of a sudden, this light bulb goes off in your head, and it's a wow moment. So, man, a thought goes off. Where's my pen? Where's my paper? I've got to write this right now, or I'm going to lose it. It's going to fade. It's this aha epiphany moment. Give us one of those.
The epiphany moment I've picked up on is a little bit goes back to when I first started writing. It was I'd been trying to write my first book for about 6 months, and as a business marketeer, as working in business, my whole life was based around planning, preparation, step by step, methodical approaches into my business life. Then suddenly I started writing, and I hit a block. I had the idea, I had the theme, I knew where I wanted to go, but I couldn't I couldn't find a way to plan the book. And I know there's lots of planning processes out there, and I tried many of them. And eventually I read a number of posts from various people who asked the same question. And the response was, start writing. Just write. And I did. And I realized that it wasn't just me, there's many people in the similar position. And what I found was, once I had the basic structure in place, my characters took over. They wrote the book for me. They developed. I just seemed to be a follower, a watcher into what was happening on my book. And then I realized that yes, you can do a certain amount of planning and preparation, but for many people, the book itself and the characters will take you where sometimes they want to go. I know it's all coming from me, and I get that, but the characters sort of almost lead the plot, and you become just an overseer, if that makes sense.
Right, right. If you have built an outline for your book, okay, so you know where your book wants to go, or
Yeah,
you want the book to go, and you hit a bit of a block. And I've told this to a number of people, and this didn't come from me, it came from somebody else. Okay, I learned this. And you hit a bit of a block, you don't stop there. What you do is you move ahead in your outline to something else and start writing, and it will come together. You see what I'm saying? Those blanks will get filled in, and then you can go, back and fill in those blanks from where you moved ahead. Just don't stop writing and say, "Oh, I've got a block, I can't write anymore." If you have that built up, you can just move ahead and start writing.
Yep,
Don't
absolutely.
stop altogether. That's just. But anyway, that my little tidbit of the day. Okay, so let's move to today. What is the one thing that has you the most excited about, the most fired up about today?
Apart from my future books, the one thing I'm working on at the moment, which I've not dabbled on before, is audiobooks. I More and more people are wanting audio. They obviously want audio and visual content, but a lot of people want audio. They will listen to a book on the train, in the car, even when lying in bed, where they're not actually watching anything. Many people listen to audio content. I have a relation who is quite disabled, and she can't actually pick up a book. And she said, I'd love to read your books, but can you make it so I can hear it? So that's what I'm doing. I've started my first book, called Logan's Rules, and I'm starting to process that into audio. It's hard. It really is. Firstly, you got to listen to your own voice back to yourself, and I don't use a narrator, and for the very reason, as I said earlier on, I'm a proper indie, and possibly I would like to use a narrator, or I would love to if I had the money, but I don't.
Right.
So this is me, and
Yeah, they can be very expensive.
yeah, they can indeed. They can indeed. And guess what? I can understand why. Going through the process, it's very hard. It's very painstaking. You got to be meticulous, and if you take any pauses like that, you've got to go back and cut them out. So anything you're talking doesn't take two or three times what the length that you would normally talk. It takes about 10 or 20 times, because you're always stopping and
Right.
starting and rechecking. So I've
Right.
done one. I've done a short story in audio to test it, and it worked very well. My relation, who's my beta listener, said, "I quite liked it. I liked your voice." I thought, well, that's okay then. So I'm starting my first book. There we go.
It's not Attenborough, but it's getting there, huh?
Absolutely. Attenborough with a Scottish accent.
All right, Max, we're going to enter the lightning round, and the lightning round has 4 pointed questions for 4 pointed answers. So, on these questions, before you became an author, what was holding you back from becoming an author?
Time. Is that lightning? Is that
Time?
lightning enough? Just time to write. I didn't have time to write. I was exceptionally busy working, and the
Okay,
f-
well,
and
that is the answer. Yeah, time.
and actually, I can
Because you
add
were just
one more thing: fear. The fear,
fear.
the fear of nobody liking what you're writing.
That's actually very common. It's
Yeah,
very common, especially when there's these big authors out there with all these big books, and they're well accepted, and they've got all these big series out there, and people are afraid, how am I going to compete with all that? People aren't going to like what I'm writing. The issue is, you're not writing for them, and you're not writing for their people, or their avatar, we call it. You're writing for you. It's
yeah,
coming from you, for your avatar, not for theirs. So your only competition is you. So all you got to do is start writing,
yeah.
right? That's all you got to do. Start writing. Okay. When you're writing, what was the best advice you had ever received?
Michael, you said it just a few seconds ago and earlier. Right. When you reach a block, when you want to start writing, don't procrastinate. Just get on with it. Write. Put it down on paper. You can't edit a blank page. You can only edit content.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and this is again, I heard this from somebody else. I just can't remember who I heard it from. We learn as we talk to other people, and I get to talk to a lot of other people, a lot of authors, and it was said, write drunk, edit sober. When you're writing, don't worry about the punctuation and the sentence structure and all that. Just write. Get in there and just start writing. Because if you're going to worry about every punctuation and everything, it's going to take you forever to do the writing. Just get in there and start writing what's in your head. Then later go back and do your editing and your spell check and your all that stuff, you know, and you'll get a lot more work done that way. Okay.
By the way, I like that phrase. Write drunk, edit sober. I'm going to plagiarize that.
Yeah, it's good advice actually. Okay. This goes to a personal habit. Share one personal habit that contributes to your success.
It's not so much a habit, is I enjoy writing. I People, when I was doing my reports back from the Middle East and Asia about life over there, people said to me, "Why are you bothering? There's far better things to do than sending back some witty episodes of what's going on." Although they all enjoyed it, I just enjoy putting content to paper, put my thoughts down on paper. It's something I've been doing for many years, and it's sort of become a part of my life.
So did you write a lot of letters to your wife then? Lengthy?
No, my wife was with me, but I was writing.
Oh, she was with you.
Yeah,
Okay, I got it.
no,
So when she's asleep, you got to write a note to her, and it's like a 10-page note instead of a one
no,
sentence
we
note,
actually
you know?
we actually talked to each other. But this was so when we moved to the Middle East, we left a lot of friends and family behind. And the objective was to just let everybody know that life is good, life is okay, and here's some interesting snippets about life over there. And I made them as humorous as possible to keep the interest going and to keep the banter going back and forward. This was before the days
Okay.
of um, social media taking over. This was early 2000.
All right. So in your writing, maybe you can share with our listeners an internet resource that you've used in your writing.
There are some very good Facebook groups. Is it one internet resource or several?
Well, whatever you use as an internet resource, I
Right.
mean, it's
Well,
up to you, your answer.
okay. There is a good Facebook group for authors called 20 to 50K Books. And I follow that quite well because there's some very, very good information and guidance in there. Writers for Writers is another group that I follow, and I really enjoy that. I've learned a lot from listening to other writers talking about what's good and bad and what works and what doesn't work. I don't take everything on board, but I take what I feel is appropriate. And then there's Mark Dawson's self-publishing-formula.com. Can I talk about other people like that? Um,
Yeah, you can.
David Gohan's Facebook ads, Brian Cohen's Amazon ads are good resources for learning how to use Amazon and Facebook in terms of ad creation. And for my imagery, I use Canva, Photor, Pixabay to create the content for my covers.
Okay.
And obviously our lovely Amazon.com, which actually gives me my money, albeit very
Well,
small.
most people say they just use a good thesaurus. No, but you're welcome to say what you want because actually it's your answer.
Okay.
Okay, Max, we are now going to enter the grand finale. And in the grand finale, what I'd like you to do is tell our listeners a way that maybe they can get in touch with you, follow you, find your book. Then I want you to take your time and just tell our listeners about your book.
Firstly, if anybody wants to reach out to me, the best way is either Facebook or email. My email address is maxholden, Maxholden, dash author@outlook.com, and I will respond. It'll be lovely to hear from potential readers. On Facebook, I am facebook.com, obviously, max.holden.author. I have a website, work in progress, so I can't talk about that. And in terms of where you can find my books, they are all on Amazon, Logan's Rules, Spectrum, and It's Just Murder Visiting the Tropics, my third book. Which brings me on to my third book, It's Just Murder Visiting the Tropics. For anybody who may have read Spectrum, it's not a parallel, but a tangential takeoff from Spectrum. From the epilogue, and one or two of the characters have appeared in this tropical murder mystery based in Sri Lanka. So the Spectrum epilogue was the clue that got me started. The third book had to be set in Sri Lanka. I love the country. I've visited it many times. We spend a lot of time there during the winter when it's horrible in the UK, and it's actually lovely over there. So I felt there was an opportunity of writing over there, and I knew I had a lot of police contacts, would you believe, in Sri Lanka. I'm not a criminal. I don't go around mugging anybody or stealing anything, but over the time there, I've made a lot of contacts within the police force because I know some people who know other people, and they're just lovely people. And what I found is I was talking about writing a murder mystery, and they were saying, "Well, what do you need?" So the head of the local SOCO was keen to help. The head of the guy that deals with Interpol was keen to help and give advice, far more than I could get from a very hardworking police in the UK. Not that the Sri Lankan police aren't hardworking, but they're just so willing to accommodate. And I had a great character, a chap called a Detective Inspector Ahsoka. And I've been thinking about him for such a long time. And I had to write a story about him and his Sergeant Nalika. And I hope if you do read it, you'll find he is a really interesting, complex character. He's a grumpy blighter, I'll use my language, with a sort of a heart of gold and a bit off the wall behavior that his peers and his management in particular find disconcerting and worrying. So I put a story that has been bubbling around my head about a murder. Well, one of the stories has been bubbling around my head about a murder mystery, and I put him into it. And D.I. Ahsoka took me through it, and I just followed him and just wrote down whatever he did. And I hope you enjoy it. There is a lot. Yes, I've still left in quite a bit about Sri Lanka for anybody who doesn't know Sri Lanka. There's a little bit of mystery in there. There's a little bit of twisting the emotions, a bit of fun, a bit of sadness, and he gets the bad guy at the end, which all detective mysteries do, don't they? Well, most of them do. And I hope if anybody reads it, I hope you enjoy it. And the one thing I would say to anybody is, let me know how you enjoyed it, because the feedback so far has been quite good.
Well, Max, we thank you so much for being here with us today, opening up to us, and I'm sure our listeners appreciate this too. Again, this is Michael T., and I would thank you for being with us this morning. We would like to give a shout out to FeedSpot, as Book Party Podcast has been selected by their panelists as one of the top 10 art book podcasts on the web. To our listeners, we would invite you to go to bookpartypodcast.com hit that subscribe tab on top, then scroll down to the icon of your choice where we can find us on one of the favorite platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or Odyssey. You can download and follow us there, and please leave a review. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter and get the latest information on our upcoming shows. Book Party Podcast is owned and powered by MTM Legacy Publishing, LLC. This is Michael T., and signing off.
You must not miss our next episode as we delve into a world of inspiration, entertainment, and thought-provoking insights. Join Michael T. on the next Book Party Podcast and experience a new adventure, a new story, and a complete immersion into the world of Pages Unveiled, Chronicles of the Writing Journey.